panelists, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and Assalamu alaikum. After listening to some very high-profile people, I don't think I fully qualify to be standing here and talking, but nevertheless, I will share with you whatever I have today. And it's about the lack of water resources management. Is it a myth or a reality? Quite a few people say that we are not running short on water, we are not running short on anything, but it's just the management which is the problem, and if our management is right, everything will be right. I would start by giving you an example of a donkey cart. A donkey cart can attain a maximum speed, and that's all it can do. If you put alloy rims on that, won't improve the performance. If you put a speedometer on it, won't improve the performance. Even if you put a digital speedometer on it, won't improve the performance. You cannot blame the person who is driving the cart that he cannot go faster. You give a person a vehicle which can go only that fast, the vehicle will only go that fast. And any fancy gadgetry like alloy rims or speedometers won't help. So that's the preamble. That's how I see at this particular topic. Now, it would be unfair if I just say the things here and everybody thinks that it's only me saying these things. I have a team of very talented, short team, very talented but highly qualified experts. These three guys, I would especially show their pictures here, and you can see the slide, their qualifications and stuff. Very highly talented, and they are working with me. Between four of us, that's our global experience. I'm showing you this slide so that everybody should have a fair idea where I'm coming from. For 28 years, I've been going around the world, and I've been to all these places. It almost covers the entire globe, from North Pole to South America, from Australia to North America. I have seen some of the best managed water projects on the globe. I have worked with some of the best water managers in the world, and I have seen some of the best technologies and techniques and management mechanisms which are used to manage water around the world. Being a Pakistani, I know we don't want to mention Israel, but leaving aside their political and other things, their water managers are definitely the best in the world. I never had a chance to work in Israel, but I have worked with Israelis in other parts of the world. And I tell you, the science and physics that they implement to manage their water resources is the same for Pakistan. The laws of physics, mathematics are the same for Pakistan as they are for any part of the world. So let's not just get carried away with an idea which comes from Israel that, oh, we won't adopt it, because it is science, it is knowledge. And as one of our great sages, Hazrat Ali, said, that knowledge is the lost property of the faithful. Wherever you find it, just grab it. I'll start with some historical perspective here. Can we switch off those lights, because my slides are slightly lighter in color so people can see it more clearly? Thank you. So, Indus had been historically a navigable river. We don't do any navigation in Indus these days. These are all the historical accounts of Indus Basin. Alexander the Great was the first one in recorded history who traveled all the way from River Jhelum all the way down to the Arabian Sea. Then it was Henry Bonfort. He was an Englishman, 1638. He took a flat-bottomed boat and traveled from Lahore to Thatta and declared the river navigable. Followed by him was a century later Alexander Hamilton. He traveled in these rivers and he said that Indus River and its tributaries are navigable from the Arabian Sea to Kashmir. And in his writings he writes C for Kashmir. Then was Alexander Burns. He is one of the most notorious guys and a very accomplished engineer, young man. He died at the age of 42, but he did some wonderful works. He was the one who came to survey Indus for its navigation capacity. And he came as a spy. He came with 4 horses. You must have heard that story. He came with 4 horses, and the government in Sindh was not allowing them to navigate up north in the river, and they said that these are the 4 horses, this is a gift for Ranjit Singh. And then they took those horses, came to Ranjit Singh, and in the meantime they did all the survey of the river. And this guy, he declared the river navigable, and he insisted the British Crown that the Crown and East India Company should make significant investments in making the river navigable, because there was a huge potential of using this, the navigation potential of this river going all the way into Kabul and accessing Central Asia, and also using the other tributaries coming into which are now parts of Western India, which is Eastern Punjab in India, Haryana, and all those areas through Ravi and Satluj rivers. Another mission to assert his claims was sent by again British, Wood, Carls, Leach, Heddle. These were the 4 engineers who came and surveyed it again. And in the mid-1800s, there were very significant navigational activities going on, Indus Flotilla, Indus Steam Flotilla, and there were so many other companies which were operating and using this river for navigation. But then what happened? The river system was designed for irrigation and not for navigation by British. Something happened in between. Starting from 1358, going back in the earlier times, it was Firoz Shah Tughlaq who built the first canal, this one here. This was the first major canal which was built in subcontinent. There were small little canals which are everywhere. They were inundation canals, but this was the one which was significant. You can see it's quite big on the map. The next one was built by Shah Jahan, and this was called Shah Nahar or Hasli Canal. And this is the canal which brought water to Shalimar Gardens in Lahore. This is the canal which supplied water to Lahore. And these 2 canals, they were inundation canals. Inundation canal is a canal which, when the river rises in monsoons, it is cut through the bank and the water starts going in there. And when the river is in low flow, this canal will not get water. But then in 1850 to 1880 almost, this was the first wave of British developing the canal irrigation systems. Now, if you go back into the history, 1849 was an important year for the British. They captured Punjab, and few years earlier in 1843, they had captured Sindh. So now, which is present-day Pakistan, in 1843 and 1849, this area came under British Crown. And the British, before they had control on this area, when Alexander Burnes and those missions were being sent, this area was not under British control. But British were looking at Indus River system for navigational, for its navigational potential. But now, in 1850, they started digging this canal, which was basically the modification of the same canal which was built by Shah Jahan. They called it Bari Doab Canal. And this canal came up because after 1849, there was a big trained army of Sikhs which was disbanded, and the British thought that they could create trouble at any time. So they started this project and asked the trained soldiers of Sikh army to come and dig the canal with an incentive to get lands. So this was not a project for social or food production reasons. It was not a social experiment, but to bring under control those trained soldiers and buy their loyalties and keep them under control. And then it was very intelligent of the British. They knew that if they could control the gates of this canal, they could control the whole Sikh population living here. Then in 1858 to 1857, it was Sirhind Canal. It also has the same story. In 1857, there was this War of Independence, And during that war, there were 6 tribes which favored British. They remained loyal to the British, especially Raja of Patiala and some of his allies. So after British started this project of Bari Doab Canal, these Rajas, they requested the British that they should give such a project to those tribes as well. And that is when this Sirhind Canal came up, and this was again dug by the Sikhs of that time, and the lands were allotted. So again, the British served 2 purposes. They got some revenues, of course, but the main purposes were they bought the loyalties and the control of the people of the subcontinent. Then until 1895, the British found that these were good economic models, these were good models to control their colony, good model to buy the loyalties, and they kept the development works in the areas which were already inhabited. So this was the first wave in which the canal building was done. In the meantime, something interesting happened. The British were first defeated in Afghanistan in 1842, followed by their second defeat in 1870s. In 1870s, after their second defeat, they decided that Indus should not be used for navigation. There's something very important about Bari Doab Canal. There was a component of Bari Doab Canal which was not built. That was, the canal would actually run from Changa-Manga all the way to Multan. That was the navigational part of the canal. It would not be used for irrigation, but for navigation. But this design was never implemented. But until 1870s, British were thinking of using Indus River for navigation. But after this defeat in the Second Afghan War, they decided not to do it. And they had an obsession that if Russians, they gain control on the western parts of the subcontinent, they might use this river for navigation, and they could not, even at that time, this was the British thinking that Russians should not get access to warm water through a navigation channel running from Indus all the way to the Arabian Sea. In 1901 to 1920 was the second wave of British canal building. Now this was slightly different from the previous wave. This was more for the economic reasons. Here the British saw that since their irrigation projects were success, they thought that they could generate more revenue. And they started bringing the wastelands. They called it crown wastelands. They started bringing those crown wastelands between the rivers. Those wastelands were basically deserts, uninhabited, very little population. So they started digging canal into those areas. And they started giving those canals again to the population, and again they were getting all the other benefits that they would get from the other canals. But there's something very important. The province of Sindh, they objected to all these projects. The Sindhis, they saw that when a canal, a major diversion from the river is made, the river flow in the Indus Delta diminishes. And that diminishing flow was not just giving them lesser water, but also it had started causing delta erosion because of the silt load which was not coming to the delta anymore. Because the Indus Delta is a very delicate environmental system where a lot of silt from the rivers, it comes and it deposits on the delta, and here is the sea wave action which erodes that. And there's a balance between the sea wave erosion and the silt being deposited. And in the early 18th century, like 1701-2, it was recorded that the Indus was a growing delta. Indus Delta was actually encroaching into the sea. But after these projects, the Sindhis, they felt that the delta is not increasing anymore, and it might start decaying or eroding if this process continues. In 1901 or 2, the proposal for Bhakra Dam on Satluj River came up, and Sindh objected to it, citing that it would stop the supply of silt to the delta. And British agreed that, okay, we will not build it. But then in the second wave, they built so many other canal projects, and Sindh kept objecting to those projects because their delta was being impacted. Then came the third wave. It was from 1920s onwards. Here again, the British, they talked about building Bhakra Dam, and in this time, they told Sindh that if Sindh allows them to build Bhakra Dam on Satluj, Sindh will be given a barrage. And then Sakhar barrage came up. This was the largest barrage, and by building this barrage, British achieved two purposes. One, that the united voice of Sindh against these big projects, it was divided. Now the people who were benefiting from Sakhar barrage, they were not in favor of opposing the British designs, and the Sindh by itself got divided. And the biggest sufferers were the people who were downstream of Sakhar barrage. And then the British, they said, okay, we will build one southern barrage and one northern barrage, and that is how this Guddu and Kotri barrages were conceived. But after 1932, the events went slightly haywire, World War, and not much development. There were so many things in plan, they were not made, and came 1947, and then there was a dividing line between India and Pakistan, and that dividing line also divided the river basin and the irrigation system. And then we know what happened. India shuts down our canals and the water war begins. Now this is something very important. In 1948, they started building Bhakra Dam, the same dam which Sindh had been opposing all along. And they started building it with the help of course, US engineers. And now, technically, it was, because Sindh was now in a different political jurisdiction, an independent country, it was now the duty of the government of Pakistan to take up case for Sindh with India. But then, the way negotiations for Indus Water Treaty went up, things were not the way they should have been. Now, 1954 to 1950, there were more development works by India, and these works were basically for diverting the eastern rivers into India, because in 1948, India declared that India will not let the eastern rivers flow into Pakistan. That was their declaration in 1948. So nothing different happened after about 12 years of negotiation. Nothing different happened. They got what they said in 1948. And this is what they were doing. Now remember, treaty was signed in 1960. This one, then this one. All these works were being done before the treaty, 55, 60. And this was the situation just before signing the treaty. Now look at that red works. That is almost a fourth of the whole basin. That was already done before the treaty was signed. All the diversions they wanted to make were made. All the barrages they wanted to make were made. The diversion canals they wanted to make were made. Bhakra Dam was almost complete. Nangal Dam was already in place. There were only two major infrastructures which were not made, which India wanted to make to fully control these rivers. One was Theen Dam, to be constructed on Ravi River, and other was Poong Dam, which was to be constructed on Beas River. These were the only two left. And in 1960, we signed the treaty. Now, here is another comparison. This is 1948, and this is 1960 before signing the treaty. So anything that we allowed India to build as per the treaty was already built. It was on ground. And it was Eugene Black. He was the president of World Bank, and at one point in time, President Ayub had asked him that, you want me to sign this treaty and give 3 rivers to India? India has already taken it. Why the hell I should sign this treaty for? He said, okay, if you want to take those rivers back through a war, go for a war and get your rivers back. But if you cannot go for on a war and get those rivers back, you sign this treaty. Because if you sign this treaty, I will give you money to build 2 dams. So it was for those 2 dams that we signed the treaty. And that's what happened in 1960. Now these are the post-treaty dams. This Bhakra was almost complete. It got completed. Then Poong Dam in 74, Theen Dam in, this is 2001. Now this is Theen Dam. After 2001, this Theen Dam was completed, and after this, Ravi went dry. Those who had been traveling on GT Road before 2001, they would have seen Ravi flowing. But after the completion of this dam, after 2001, the Ravi is dry. It's not flowing anymore. And these were the two dams which were built for Pakistan. Now, our largest structural intervention on Indus Basin is, of course, Tarbela Dam. A little bit of analysis on Tarbela, what Tarbela actually did for us. Not in terms of electricity generation, but because today is water, so I only talk about water. What it did for water. Now, first of all, look at these two maps. One is from 1966, the other is today. Today's map has two dams, and the map of 1966 has no dams at all. Now, it is generally believed that without these two dams, our irrigation system would have died. Now, in 1966, look at the irrigation system that you have in 1966. I actually say spot the difference other than the dams. It is almost as big an infrastructure of irrigation canals and barrages as it is today, and it was running without dams. And today we believe that if we did not have dams, our irrigation system would be dry and become desert. Let's see what Tarbela did. These are the annual transfers. Now again, this thing was talked about that the dams will stop the floods. They will store the excess water in this year from the wet year and transfer it to the dry year. Now this is data from WAPDA, starting from the day Tarbela Dam started its operations is 1974 and all the way to 2010. Now this data tells us that as much water in any given year has entered the dam as much has left. And there's hardly a year in which there is a significant water transfer from year to year, which means your largest dam that you built did not ever transfer water from one year to another. So this is the fact, this is from data. But interseason, from monsoon to dry months, let's see how it works. Again, this is from data, and this is the average of flow in all those months since Tarbela was built, since 1974. This is the average for every month. The blue lines is the river flow, natural flow. The green lines is what you are diverting into canals. And the red lines are what dam is storing in the on the lower side, and then what it is releasing in the drier months. And here you can actually see the scale, the magnitude, how much water is otherwise flowing and how much dam is supplementing. And a simplified form of this graph is here. So all the irrigation water that is supplemented by Tarbela is less than 7%. So we should not go away with an idea that if we built another dam, our irrigation would be revitalized or go to the moon or something. It's only 5 to 6%. So then we come to the cost benefit analysis. Is spending $10 billion and getting 5% increase or 4% increase is worth the price? No, that's the question. I mean, technically everything is possible, but is it financially feasible? Is it socially acceptable? And is it environmentally sustainable? So those three questions are always to be asked, because doing a project is not a problem. You can find the financial models, you can find the engineering solutions, you can erect the structures, and they can stand there. But financial, social, and environmental sustainability. We are signatories of sustainability development goals, and the whole world is now thinking about sustainability. What are the major externalities of these mega projects? Usually we don't like to talk about these externalities, but let's not behave like an ostrich, bury our head in sand. Let's raise our heads and look. Besides giving those 5 to 6% benefits, what negativities? This is eroding Indus Delta. Now this is, again, me and my team, we worked a lot on this Indus Delta. We have satellite images starting from 1984 until today. And those are the sources of these images, and last one is our company's name, which is the analysis part. And this is the summary of it. Sorry. Eroding Indus Delta. The dark red part is the area of Indus Delta which is permanently going under the sea. And the light red part is the area which is coming under tides. And you would be surprised to know the rate at which this is happening today. Between 1984 and today, the average area going permanently under the sea is 24 acres per day. I repeat, 24 acres of land per day is permanently going under the sea because your delta is eroding, because the silt supply has been choked. And 67 acres per day is coming under tidal action. Once the tide starts going, you can't do much on that area. So your production, your living, your everything is just waiting to be, died. And then this menace of waterlogging and salinity. We did a lot of SCARP projects and stuff, and we say we reclaimed so many lands and we did this and we did that. But the fact is, even today, there are swaths of land, if you travel in southern Punjab and Sindh, you will find which are under salinity attack. And then there's waterlogging, the twin menace of waterlogging and salinity, and it is not just restricted to your irrigated areas. It is also impacting, I don't know what happened to the pictures. Is the computer slow? Is it showing a picture on the slide? Is it on the computer? Do you see a picture here? Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, now this is hope for the foreign aid. These areas which are being degraded, you missed those pictures, so you cannot really connect this one. But this is a board which reads children's playground. And this board, this children playground that you can see, there's hardly anything that looks like a playground, but this came from an aid agency. And here actually the children are actually playing. This is that board. Children are barefooted and they are not without hope. They say, Ab banega naya Keti Bandar. Now Keti Bandar is a coastal town which has been 70% eroded. Now this is our opportunity. Changing global mind and future discourse. The global mind is not thinking the way it was thinking in 1960s and 1950s. The global mind is changed. They are thinking of integrated water resources management. And this is a publication from UNESCO. The title reads Free Flow. Free flow, I think the title says it all. What it means is that, read the blue line, water belongs to no one but to the river where it flows and as it flows. This is the global mind. This is how the best water managers in the world are solving problems today. They are letting the rivers flow. And this is the kind of thinking which is going behind. This is sustainability. This is full structural control, and this is no structural control. And this is full adaptation, and this is no adaptation. And between these two extremes, we have various degrees of sustainability. We want to be in the green part. We don't want to go to the red and yellows. And that is what our future models of anything should be like. Now this is something that we are, it's some unfortunate situation. We are hostage to imported advices and gifts. Now this is Lai Nala. You see this box on a pillar? This is a gift from JICA. It monitors the flood level in the river, in Lai River, and it gives an early warning that a flood is coming. So this is what we are doing. But look at that stream. Similarly, it's again Lai River, and this is an urban stream. This is Lai in Pakistan, and this is Chingi Chong stream in South Korea. Now this is the kind of solution that should to fix the problems of Lai Nala, not a gift from JICA that will solve our problems. We are hostage to those kind of advices, and we are ignoring the contemporary water management. Nobody in Pakistan is telling you what the contemporary water management looks like in the other parts of the world. We are still being told that, okay, that's the way you would be living in the 21st century. Now, I talked about this on a radio show. It is still on the YouTube. This is Chingi Chuang stream, which was basically before, like until 2005, this stream was just like Nala Lai. They fixed it. And I know how it is fixed. And I know which are the resources which are required to fix it. It's not a very expensive and a very time-consuming project. I made these announcements. I wrote about it in Pakistan. But guess what? Modi went there to see it. Now, nobody is listening to me in Pakistan, but somebody is listening. Now, that's a bit unfortunate. Somebody is listening, because that somebody is the one that we don't want to listen. Now, this is what is possible. This is Lai Nala, and that is Chingi Chuang stream. This is what is possible. It is being done in the world. Examples are here: financial models, technical models, environmental models. Everything is there. This is your Swan River. Now, you know, this side is Baria town and this side is DHA1. Most posh localities to live in this country. And guess what they are doing? This is Swan River. They are dumping all their solid waste and sewage here, and DHA is doing it from here. And in between, this is your stream. Whereas, potentially, it could be done like this. It can still be done. Okay, we have about 7,000 kilometers of waterfront in Pakistan. And we have not invoked that economy in our system. You see, this is the kind of solutions that people are developing on their waterfronts. 7,000 kilometers and no project of intrinsic value. In San Antonio, Texas, they are doing intrinsic value projects on San Antonio River for 15 miles. And on each mile, they are earning $145 million per year. Now, guess what? If you are doing it on 7,000 instead of 15, this is $1 trillion economy. But we are not even thinking of invoking this economic engine in our discourse. We are still thinking of doing varabandi and flood irrigation and more water and more canals and nala paka kar lo, khala paka kar lo. Abhi tak hum usi cheez mein pade hue hain, unfortunately. In the agriculture sector, again, the global mind is doing something very different. We are using this flood irrigation system, which was invented 6,000 years ago, actually 12,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. We have given the same thing to our system. We don't use a 2-year-old mobile phone, and we have given our farmer a 12,000 years old system. That is where the driver comes in. The driver can't do anything. You have given him a donkey cart. He can't go faster. This is the technique in which you see it's one small 500-gallon water tank, and it can irrigate 1 acre of land. And not just irrigate. This is how the farm looks like. Here again you can see the tank. This is the full growth. The growth is proper. The surface is dry because there is no water on the surface. Everything is coming under the surface. And the fruit. And this is where the validation of the concept. The surface down there is, the surface up here is dry, whereas the soil is moist. These are the systems which only create moisture in the root zone. And these systems are today available even in Pakistan. This project that I'm showing you has been implemented in Pakistan. But nobody is coming to irrigation efficiency. Your tank is leaking, you are putting more water in order to fill it, you are not thinking of fixing the tank. This is where your water is leaking. This is where you need to fix. That's how your priorities should be. And this is the system. Today, this is our water productivity. The first world is like this, and these kind of systems that I'm showing, they are way better than this. Then what does this mean? If we adopt these systems, we can bring the water back to the rivers. If this is all the water that we are applying on all this area, with these systems, we can do the job only in this much water. We don't need to send 104 million acre feet of water in our irrigation sector. The job can be done with 22. We can save 106. And if we start thinking how to implement these projects, I say 50-50 scenario, you take 50% of area and only achieve half the efficiency, you save this much of water, which is 43 billion cubic meters. And if we decide to achieve that much in 20 years, I call it a 50-50-20 scenario, that we can do it in, say, 20 years. I mean, in 20 years, it's not unrealistic. And this is what it looks like. This is the first bar is the water that is coming into the river. The second one is going into the irrigation. This is your dams, and this is your environment. 20-year target, you can save this much water. It cuts it here and adds here, back to the environment. And if you go with the full system in, say, 50 years' time, then this much water you can save, it cuts here and adds here, and you can have the flowing rivers. Here, you can have the flowing rivers. And these flowing rivers can, then you can invoke the other engines of water economy that you are not thinking about now. You are not thinking about intrinsic value, you are not thinking about navigation. Those two engines, if you invoke in your system, then you can have so many other projects. You can actually earn more money from your flowing rivers than Middle East does from oil. This is the potential of Indus River. And this is how the modern day projects are assessed. Every single project that you propose is assessed against its externalities and internalities. It is not liking or disliking. It's a very systematic, scientific, and a merit-based system of evaluating projects. You just don't think of one project and then just say, well, we will implement it. You take the other projects, you take the other options in hand, measure them side by side, and then decide what to do. Now this is navigation, and navigation is basically the biggest economic engine that you can have in Indus River. And here is an example of Sawa River, which is being used for navigation. In comparison to Indus, this river is smaller in length, lesser in water volume. Okay. Just two more slides. And this is what a flowing river economy looks like.